2, 1. Hola! Greetings, I'm Jeff Scott. I'm with CafeYPanDulce. We're here Wednesday morning at the fabulous Casa Cano, and Ruth, our normal announcer, is not here today, but I'll do my best to step in. We've got some great guests today, including our fabulous host, the proprietor of everything that is wonderful in this home, Christian Cano. Bless
and bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
For those who
Thank you
for
so
those who
much.
have not followed us over the last 27 weeks, we have a character called Bless Your Heart. It is a Charlotte character that tells everyone bless your heart as they're talking behind your back.
That is Charlotte.
But none of us would never do that.
Of course.
We would never do that.
I just forgot my coffee cup.
Oh no!
After all that
no.
pre-production in the kitchen, I'm sorry.
Production
production
flaw.
value. We waste no money on production value in this hotel. Our most expensive is the artwork that we got from. That is actually an original Rob Harris. He's a Charlotte out of artist.
That's right.
And like LaWana, who I'm going to tell you, everyone knows LaWana, but I'll tell you, we're very excited to have her today. She patronizes a lot of local people. She tries to promote them as much as she can. So thank you for that. And we're gonna talk a lot about that today. Welcome to CafeYPanDulce. Today is June 19th, which is Juneteenth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastical.
Yeah, listen, we're going to talk about that. We've got a special guest, Maurice Falls, as well, and our neighbor, Barbara Bacon, and of course, our co-host, Jeff Scott. Ruth Perez, I believe, is either finishing her vacation. She probably has vacation hangover. So they were out in some resort. So
Vacations are so difficult.
let's try technology.
So difficult.
Let's try technology. Alexa, stop.
Okay.
What do you need
Modern
sound
technology.
guys? Exactly.
Alexa, please train my teenager.
Watch it start.
Or,
Watch it. I cannot understand.
that.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen.
there are some things that Alexa and Jeff Bezos cannot do.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Listen, welcome to CafeYPanDulce. Thank you for watching us live on our Facebook page. Also later on YouTube or your favorite social media app. We know most people watch us later because they don't want us to know they're watching us live at the time. So welcome to we have some very important topics we're going to talk about. But before we talk about those, let's go ahead and go around the table and introduce our neighbors. We'll start from our right because they're always usually right.
Yay, I'm right today. My name is Barbara Bacon. I'm a healthcare advocate here in the Charlotte community.
Excellent.
My name is Jeff Scott. I'm a candidate in the 9th District, as many of you know, and I'm a man about town.
About town, that's right.
I am LaWana Mayfield. I was crazy enough to run for office, so I
And win
served
several times.
on
So you're
Charlotte City
obviously
Council,
So
but
disappointed.
I have always been and will continue to be an activist at heart, and also now a podcaster.
Well, thank you.
Yay.
Yes.
Yay,
We'll talk
alright.
briefly about her show. She's got a great show called Unapologetically Black
With LaWana Mayfield.
with LaWana
It is.
Mayfield. I've actually seen the show. It's really, really good.
Well,
The
fantastic.
production value is almost embarrassing for us. You know, they actually have like graphs and stuff. And so
It's what we aspire to.
exactly.
Right?
One of these days. We'll be following each other on Netflix. one day.
Exactly.
And
Okay, I am Maurice Falls. I am a realtor, so I'll let you know that. You can
excellent.
email me at mauricel.realtor@gmail.com. And I am also on several nonprofit boards here in Charlotte, and I'm a native Charlottean, which is really
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
you are now the 4th native Charlottean we've had on our show.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had, I think we had Tara Long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We had Fudd, who's our
Oh,
Republican.
that's right.
But
That's right.
technically he's from the mountains.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's a Republican.
Kind of hillbilly.
Yeah.
We'll give him credit.
He's
We'll
watching
give
the
him
show,
credit.
so we can't call him a hillbilly. He's from the country. That's what we say. He's from the country. And then I think a couple of other people we've had on the show. So before we start CafeYPanDulce, as is tradition in my house, we actually salute to CafeYPanDulce.
Okay.
So salute.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good morning. Happy
And
cheers.
as I am talking and
Oh, that's what happens when
That's
you
what
share
happens.
coffee.
This is the 3rd time it's happened, and I have this protection thing on this thing for that. So thank you,
Wonderful.
everyone else just
There
sat
you
there
go.
and watched.
Yes,
you
they
actually,
did.
Yeah.
Yes, they
You
did.
actually were polite
Public
enough to actually
service
do
in
it.
action.
Thank you, thank you. Our Pandulce is from Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue, so please help yourself as we grab a plate and help yourself if
Love
you are so
Manolo's.
inclined
Great.
to eat that. And the three issues we're going to talk about today is Juneteenth, and there was a longer title for that. It was Juneteenth and I'm not sure.
Decoupling white supremacy from our history.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in our first segment. Our second segment, which is going to be very small, is the Trump ICE raid threats that he made on Sunday night or Monday night, I believe. I think it was Sunday. He's threatened to arrest over 1 million, in his words, his dog and whistle words that he uses, illegal aliens.
Yeah.
I wonder if that
and
ever, in
criminals.
his mind, if it ever includes his spouse or any of the previous spouses.
I think that's a good. We should include that.
Really?
That's correct. And then our last conversation we're going to have is, if we have enough time, which I hope we have, I'm sure we will, is art funding and should taxpayers pay for it in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County area? Is that right? Because I know you're kind of our culture guy.
Yeah,
so.
and LaWana, of course, is very conversant with these issues too, and so it's great that you're here.
For disclaimer, I am also a board member of the Arts and Science Council, and we actually have a board meeting that's going to be starting in a little bit.
Right.
Oh,
You can
excellent.
go from here to there and
Yes.
So if you will take this time to please share our video and our show on your with your circle of friends, or as the mayor says, your silos. Is that what she says? The mayor uses the word silos, and I had to look that up. I thought it was like some Star Trek thing or something.
It is not a
Are
Trek
you-
thing.
you're
No,
I think so. I'm a Trek man.
yeah, I was
It's
being,
like there's grain silos,
being a little-
there's missile silos.
I was being sarcastic because she
Okay.
divided all
Oh,
those
yeah.
things up because she
Yeah.
said we all operate in our silos,
Oh yeah,
and I'm
so
like,
that's
maybe you operate in your silos.
Well,
but I-
there is a level of that, and
Okay.
we do need to acknowledge it because
Okay.
Charlotte is a very transactional community in a large part, whereas you have a lot of relational people within that. So when you maneuver just around town, you're not going to always see the same people at same events, and then it's always that question of where did all these new people come from?
Yeah.
Like where did you
Okay.
go?
Uh-huh.
So there's a level of silos that we have. The conversation like this is how do we break out of them?
right. So there was a lot of corporate speak in the late '90s about businesses being sort of overly siloed and not being able to relate to one another and communicate. And so
Okay, well,
that needed to be
it was just more than
yeah.
2 syllables or 1 syllable, so I got
Silo.
confused. Yeah, you had to
Silo.
look it up. All right,
Yes.
yeah.
Sounds like a new singing
Okay, so
sensation. I'm
those-
Silo.
those who follow us know that we have the Jeff Scott Bell. If Jeff goes more than 30 seconds, you grab the bell and you just ring the bell.
Oh, you're
So-
calling me long. Me.
I think it's
Me?
equal opportunity
Me?
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's jump right into it. I want to congratulate everyone, or I don't know if the word is congratulate, but I want to say happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
As a
Yeah.
person who grew up in Texas, my early years, that was part of our curriculum. Was to learn about Juneteenth,
Wow.
and there aren't a lot of curriculums that include that. Of
Mhm.
course,
Yeah,
now
right.
it's
Right.
changed. They probably don't even talk about Cesar Chavez or Juneteenth or anything.
Yeah.
And so we were very educated about Juneteenth. And for those who are not familiar with Juneteenth, Juneteenth is celebrated by many of our communities, African American communities here in the United States. And there was a Juneteenth event this weekend, I believe, in some
Yeah.
cities and so
Yeah.
forth. And so who would like to talk to us about Juneteenth?
Okay.
Well, can I talk about my ignorance of Juneteenth first?
Please.
Just because you said
Where's the
that.
bell?
You are the token white privilege.
And I'll,
so
I'll
let's
keep
go
it
ahead
short
and do
because
that.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about what I don't know, right?
Excellent,
Okay.
excellent.
Because I grew up in Southern California, and I don't remember hearing about this particular holiday. I mean, it may have escaped me, but I do know that as an adult, our party, the Libertarian Party, has kind of adopted it because of its promise of self-ownership, and which is a underlying theme of the party. So again, I don't really know a lot of the history about it. I read a little bit about the delays in the announcement of the end of slavery in Texas. And
South did not want to give it
Yeah.
up.
that's right. That's right. So they were hanging on to the end. So anyway, that's it. That's really all I knew, and I really had to catch up to understand a little bit more about it. So I'm looking forward to.
Excellent.
Well, from my standpoint, when we talk about Juneteenth, I think everyone thinks about emancipation,
Yeah.
and people recognize that. But the date in which we say, "Hey, everyone was free in this country," we really don't know about or celebrate as a cultural milestone, and it really gets to the idea that history is created by the victors.
Yeah.
And too often when it comes down to Southern history and American history in general, it is the majority culture that is celebrated and recognized, and often, you know, Blacks and Native Americans, we are just as American and just as Southern as people of European descent, but our historical narratives are not celebrated. So for me, it's really great to have this conversation to talk about why that is and the importance of recognizing everyone's shared history, because we are, as I said, we are Americans too.
Right, we are American history.
Yeah.
We're not an elective
Yeah.
or a conversation that happens once you leave grade school into college, where you're paying for your education to try to learn, or having to go out on your own, or hopefully grow up in a family that instills upon you who you are specifically as Blacks in America.
Yeah.
Well, could I ask a question? Because it seems to me that a lot of people who do become educated and they go to good schools and colleges understand this. They understand the facts of American history, but you know, the mass voting public tends to be somewhat nativist, patriotic, wanting to rally around the flag, wanting to have a coherent sense of unity about what the country stands for and what our values are for. So we really don't want to think about slavery, don't want to think about wiping out the Indians, don't want to think
whitewash that whole
What a good word.
So anyway, that's my take on it. How do you see it? I mean, is it really motivated necessarily by racism, or is it motivated simply by what every other country do, which says, I want to believe wonderful things about the place that I live and the people that are around me and the glory of my country?
Before you answer that, can I just make an observation?
No problem.
Yeah.
You know, our show started 28 weeks ago, and the goal of our show was to educate Latinx people who spoke mostly English from the ages of 12 to 45. And one of the things that I have noticed when my own community talks about things is our ignorance on a lot of things in general. And even us have admitted our ignorance. One of the things that I have noticed on our show is optics is very important.
Yes.
And this was not done purposely, but I noticed that our white guests are sitting on one side and us people of color are sitting on the other side. Now, I know that was not done purposely because I see y'all.
LaWana sat in my seat.
No.
For the camera.
But I do want to say
She's got better political instincts than me.
I do want to say in the future on our show, we need to do a better job of not feeding into that vision.
Okay, in my defense,
So,
In her
I-
defense, she wanted to sit next to me. That's in her
see
defense.
color, and I never have. I moved to Wilmington, Delaware when I was 35 years old because my company got bought by DuPont. I came from Lily White, Crystal Lake, Illinois. It was culture shock for me, but then I was immersed in it, and I don't realize it, but then I go back to my hometown and it's like, yo. Or they come and visit me where I've lived, and I had nieces that went home because they were terrified. I just don't see it anymore. I see you.
well,
So that's a whole nother show. Because there's a lot, like you said, decoupling that can happen in there, because there is a reality and a narrative that, though may be truly unintentional, when specifically white people say they don't see color, you're discounting a reality of what it is to be Black in America, whether that's going to the store, the fact that you have to have self-pep talk every day before you walk out your house, because you never know what you're gonna run into. So when we get to that place of, I don't see color, whether it, again, is intentional or not, it is discounting a 400 plus history of being either Native American, Black, Latino, anything other than white cis male. in this nation.
Yeah. And I just,
Okay, so let's go
So
back to
let's-
my
answer-
original question then.
Yeah, so, and I think it kind of ties into that as well.
Yeah.
So your question is this just normal, human behavior and then the relationship with white supremacy? And I would say that it's both. That human beings, there's been slavery, there's been oppression for as long as humans have been on this earth.
Right.
And so white supremacy is part of that. So you have to recognize that our inclination to dominate other people is a natural instinct. And so what white people, Europeans have done is just taken what has come naturally and humans to how we've organized our systems and cultures and societies and place race on it. So it isn't one or the other. It's something that, and I would say that not necessarily naturally, but human behavior, how we have organized our societies, and just really to perpetuate systems of power, that's leads to oppression.
And adding on, layering that with legislative policy,
Exactly.
with corporate language to ensure that that idea of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, recognizing everyone doesn't have laces, much less boots, and recognizing that we have legislative policy language from housing to credit access to specifically say this segment of people should not nor should ever have access to what we have access to.
Sure.
Because to me, when I look at, I'm looking at like the basics. I always try to get to, okay, what is the root problem here? And when you see our systems in many ways are still serfdom. It's like, oh, we want to keep people tied to an employer. So that's why we don't have universal health care. So the
Shout out for Medicare for All.
Yes.
Tara, you heard it from
Yes.
yeah. So the systems that we have, power does not let go easily.
No.
It just adapts. So it's like a virus. And so what you have to recognize is a part of yourself that feeds into those systems, and how do you inoculate yourself and question and say, okay, well, I see what the problem is because I don't see color. Like it's baffling to me, and the analogy I give is, do you see a red rose or a white rose and you can appreciate that color? We need to appreciate the differences and the diversity of it. So I see color and I love it and I celebrate it. And that's what we want to cultivate, not that we don't see it.
So here's a question, because I understand what you were saying.
Right, and it wasn't in a bad way.
Well, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but I mean, I don't see that I should differentiate myself from you. I don't see anything bad. I just want to know who you are and get to know you. And that's what I mean. But if you take it a different way, then certainly counsel me, because I now have a black nephew and niece, and my whole family doesn't know what to do about it. And it's brought a real culture shock to my family. And I had the sheriff made a comment at his at Ed Drake's meeting and said, have you had the talk? And Tara and I looked at each other because I'm terrified for him.
Yeah.
Well,
And that talk in black community starts as early as 3-4 years old.
He
whenever you
lives in Lily Illinois. and
that may be even worse. For most people who have been watching our show, we had a conversation about this, if you remember. And one of our guests, we won't mention her name, she said that we were talking about CMPD and so forth, and she said that when her son was pulled over, that the police called her and said, "Can you please come and pick up your son and take away Game Boy," or something like that. And we all were like in shock. The fact that you had so much privilege that the police would actually call you. No one else who is a person of color would ever have gotten that call, and so there is that. I'm glad that we're able to kind of see those differences, but is there a word or a way that we can phrase that? Because I understand what you're saying.
I
but
don't
it comes
mean to
but
offend.
Oh, no,
you're
not offensive.
No offense.
But it's always an opportunity just to have a conversation
Sure.
to share how it is received.
Yeah.
And you gave a great analogy
that's a good
where
one, yeah.
when you see we do see color.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we can choose to embrace that color, or we can choose to not acknowledge that color. And when we don't acknowledge it, especially in skin pigmentation, because this is a conversation all around the world.
Sure.
When you go to the Dominican Republic, when you go to Puerto Rico, when you go to Trinidad, when you go to Haiti, there's also that disconnect between someone that's fair skinned versus someone who's darker skinned, and they don't identify by black or white. They identify by nationality. But there's still a lot of conversations that happen in the paper bag test, as far as how light are you, meaning how much access you have in the world and how you're able to pass.
So interesting you say that, because that's the conversation about my new niece. And we're like, okay, and I just,
it's a conversation within the black community.
Well, that's why with our special, even though it's not on our agenda today, that's why that special election that you're in and 3 other candidates are in, it always just made me cringe when I saw the Democratic nominee make those commercials. As a Marine, I never saw black and white in this. And of course, my thing is, you must live in Disney World if you don't think that that actually exists. I mean, it's great to live in Disney, but that's not reality.
Right.
Just because that's what you think.
Let me just sort of add another layer to my earlier question.
30 seconds, because we got to go to the next.
It's just a question, and LaWana, I know you've had some thoughts about this in the past. Americans have a self-image, right? We have a self-image of the way we think about issues at home with people of color and people of lower class or people of lower income, but we also extend that around the world. Okay.
Colonization.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think we're kind of close in viewpoint on the way that the United States is projecting, I would call it sort of imperial power.
Exactly. And the fact that a lot of us walk around with a serious case of superiority. As if we have everything right in the United States of America, and we can tell every other country everything that you're doing wrong, but we refuse to hold that mirror up. To look at ourselves and look at what we have done as a nation, and to look at colonization, because there is no other country where we step foot into where we are not still there.
That's right.
We don't go in and visit and then bring our butts home. Once we come in, we stay, and we attempt to change, opposed to recognizing, supporting, and embracing culture. We're saying your culture is wrong. We have the right culture, and there's a challenge with that.
Well, and I think again, just trying to, because the question is, how do you affect on a larger scale? And I think sometimes we just need to go micro and being intentional in our own lives, because what's been in my mind lately is, how do we live a life of inclusion? Because in your workplaces or at school, they will talk about inclusion and hiring practices, but those people that are doing that talking, how many friends do they have of other economic backgrounds, of other races? Because so often as we move up ladders of society, it means leaving people behind. And so we need to make sure that we are bringing ladders, and instead of pulling those ladders up, that we're going back and reaching people, and then being intentional about who's in the table. I mean, and me and LaWana mentioned recently about like an LGBTQ context, but there was an incident. I went to a conversation. It was on education, and the whole entire panel was white LGBTQ speakers, and it was the only reason I bring it up is because they started talking.
It's what happens.
And I know the people. I'm not saying they're bad people, but it was again to me a lack of intention. And there was a comment.
Intentionality.
There was a comment that was made about CMS and being open to welcoming to gay students, and based on my personal experience, I was like, no. and I felt like my experience had been erased, because there was not just more people, and I understand that, okay, these are people that but you have to take opportunities to bring.
This is going to require.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
This is Maurice. I'm sorry. Finish.
How did you get here?
You had to take the opportunity to pass the mic sometime, because I know that the people that organize it, I'm like, I know you know people of color
Yes.
that are educators that can speak on this topic.
But it
Well,
wasn't even a thought,
yeah.
and that's the challenge.
Well-
Is and a lot of it's not intentional. It's the fact that you're not even in consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know, on this show, we have this character called Bless Your Heart.
Yes.
And bless your heart is a metaphor, I guess, is that the term I'm using? It is
I think of it as kind of a lack of introspection.
Yes.
A lack of being
of
able
the
to identify
Charlotte
your.
type of individual that what we call Charlotte is infamous for being a bless your heart racist and biggest city. So they're not in your face.
Have a nice day,
What-
racist.
exactly, exactly. So this is
a lot of
one of those
confirmation.
things that if you're an event, and we have been to many, or at least I have been to many events where you share, that's not how I feel, this is whatever, and the bless your heart people say, no, that's not right, and then they'll move on, as if though what
Your feelings
your
are not
eyes
valid.
are lying, and then you question yourself. You're going, maybe I'm really just like radical, or maybe I'm just not.
Oh, I never
they
question
make you.
myself.
Well, I know you don't. I know you don't, and I know there's many people in our community that do an incredible job of moving things that are important forward. But what I've always told people, if you don't have people trying to knock you down and telling you that you're being a troublemaker, then you're probably not really accomplishing something.
Yeah.
Because the first thing they do in
Boy, have I
Charlotte, if you
accomplished
question
things.
anything,
Anything.
is try to knock you down and put you in your place and put you in your lane.
Because it's just that.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
stepping outside of your place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the fact that there's a system
Yes.
that determines what your place is.
Yes.
So the moment they feel
You're not doing
as
it.
if you are stepping into
Yes.
a realm
Yes.
outside of your stature, then it is our responsibility, whether that's in
Yeah.
the media, whether that's within
Mhm.
news, whether that is within corporate
Mhm.
spaces, they are going to do their best to remind you the place that you have, and
Exactly.
you need to just smile and have a nice day.
And it tends to happen,
Been
not all
there.
the time.
Mhm.
It
Been
tends to
there.
happen more with people of color. When more privileged individuals who aren't always white, there are privileged people of color as well, who are
Exactly.
maybe just as worse.
Yeah.
But whenever
Yeah.
privileged people say something, they're being patriotic, they're being, yeah, we need to do. When people of color who maybe not as traditionally privileged do it, it's, why do you have to be a troublemaker? Why can't you just, this,
And we
so
get it from our
is-
own community.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that, listen, Juneteenth is a very, very important time
Yes.
period, and I want to congratulate everyone or celebrate everyone. Of course, because I'm really lazy, I looked it up on Wikipedia. And it says Juneteenth, also known as Juneteenth Independence Day or Freedom Day, is an American holiday that commemorates the June 19th, 1865 announcement of the abolition of slavery in the U.S. and the state of Texas, and generally the emancipation of enslaved African Americans throughout the former Confederate States of America. Its name is a
Portmanteau.
of June and 19th. The date is a celebration. Juneteenth is recognized as a state holiday and special day of observation in 45 states.
Of observance.
Of observance.
In 45 states?
Yes. Do we celebrate that in North
Interesting.
Carolina? Is it an official holiday? Do you know?
So we did celebrate
Yeah.
Juneteenth this past Saturday.
Okay.
So there was a celebration
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
of Juneteenth. Is it nationally recognized or is it state recognized? No.
See, those are one of those. I would think.
We need to look.
Well,
that up.
again,
Important
there.
holidays.
I think if you go to the LP national site and
Sure.
and their Facebook page, there is a
LP Libertarian Party.
Libertarian
Libertarian Party.
Libertarian
Okay.
Party, because they hold this this pact
Sure.
fairly seriously
Yeah.
about
But I
cell
mean, it's
phone
also to say, okay, you have a
Yeah.
holiday, but who
Yeah.
actually acknowledges it?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
our governors.
It's on
and
every
city
news
like-
station.
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
I would be more than
Yeah.
willing to get rid of Columbus Day for Indigenous Day, and I'd be
Yeah.
willing to get rid of.
How about
Well, I mean,
Donut
I like
Day?
Veterans Day. I like Memorial
We
Day.
have so many new days,
I know,
but
it's like-
in spite of recognizing
Yeah,
the American
sure.
Really
history,
Experience,
if it is not cis white male,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we've created all these additional days
Yeah.
I know.
that we
Those,
celebrate.
aren't those
Hot
just
dog
basically
day.
federal
I know, it was
federal
Labor Day.
holidays for federal workers?
Well,
I mean,
for those who are lucky enough to be in the financial industry, the insurance industry, a lot of those companies are closed when the stock market's closed.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
So
yeah.
they also benefits, and then also, which is I'm so pro union, and so this is because just as the Chamber of Commerce negotiates for businesses, we need unions to start negotiating, especially here in Charlotte before the RNC. We need to unionize our housekeepers and our hospitality workers, and that's my big thing.
So that's a whole.
I know you and I do not agree with that. So once again, all
I
of
had a
those.
labor meeting yesterday.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Listen, so we're going to wrap up Juneteenth because we're going to be going a little over since we started 15 minutes late. But anything else anyone wants to add about Juneteenth and the importance of this day?
Well, let's go. Can we read the 13th Amendment?
Well, we're going to go ahead and read our constitutional quote of the week early, since this
This ties into our discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if everyone will pull out their constitution, those at home, it is on page
25.
So the 13th Amendment, this was ratified December 6th, 1865.
Okay.
So the holiday known as June 19th was the announcement of abolition in Texas, right? So this amendment didn't pass until 6 months later.
Okay.
Section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime wherever the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Section 2, Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So there should be no slavery where the United States
however,
here's
jurisdiction.
an important
I'm
fact
glad you're
that we
gonna say it.
choose not to talk about.
Okay.
So going back
Yeah.
to section 1, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. And when did what we know of today as the industrialized prison system and for-profit private prisons, where did they get their foundations? On
that.
the day after.
That little
This
line.
became law, and that is when the
chain
creation
gang.
of no solicitation laws, and when you saw the mass incarceration,
Right.
specifically of anyone that was not white cis male. So of blacks, of natives, of those of Chinese descent, you saw the creation of people just living their daily life, being incarcerated in jail to continue to provide that free slave labor that you once took advantage of. Because remember, as blacks, we were property. So even when the so-called abolition of slavery was created, those landowners were then able to file for their loss of income and loss of property, because that's what blacks were considered. You were able to file your insurance for the loss of property for these now freed slaves.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
We've had an educational
Our
moment.
nation.
There's actually a documentary that is out that I really enjoyed watching. It's been out for a while, but I watched it and it talked about how that one set of those words in that amendment allowed people to be arrested on just frivolous crime.
Everything.
On
Yeah.
Netflix.
That's
Have you
right.
ever heard
Yeah.
The 13th,
Is it
Yeah.
called?
So-
it's
called
the
13th.
right, the 13th documentary.
Yeah. It is really, really worth
No,
watching.
it's
I
a
would
great-
encourage everyone
it's
to
an
watch it.
But I do think everybody is broadly aware that problems didn't end when bondage ended, right?
No.
I mean, we went into Jim Crow and
It
Reconstruction.
created a
and
whole another
everything
level of
else.
problems that we're still having
That's right.
to fight today in 2019.
All right,
But at least that was done.
So let's
Self-ownership.
This was a very important conversation, and we're going to have more conversations as we continue to go through. And I want to thank everyone for their input and their insights into this. Let's talk very briefly, so we don't go over too much today, on the Trump's ICE raids threats. Of course, as many or may not know, Trump, because he's in his campaign rhetoric kind of mode. He spoke yesterday in Orlando, I believe. To kick off his campaign, he tweeted this weekend that he plans to round up and arrest millions of illegal aliens. He uses those dog whistle words. We still don't use those words.
Those don't even sound like dog whistles.
Well,
Those sound like that sounds like fairly plain English.
It is very. He doesn't hide his.
But yet again, I fail to understand how that does not include his current wife or previous wives
Yeah,
that you needed
well-
to import.
Well, most of the policies that he is against now, they benefited from.
Yeah,
All
but
of them, and the
it's-
fact
it's
that the Fair family came in on the
Yeah,
Einstein visa.
exactly.
Are you serious?
you have to remember that his foreign-born wives
Mhm.
are doing the job that no American will do.
So they did take our jobs. That's a good one, Jeff. I'm glad you said that one. Well, I think obviously, of course, there's part of me that believes. Yeah, well, apparently some of them have to tolerate it.
Yeah,
This is something that I think is obviously very, very unfortunate, and it riles up his base is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's still there. And I think it was
But not
very
enough.
telling that the Orlando Sentinel, one of the major papers in that region, immediately
The
wrote out
Orlando
an op-ed.
Sentinel.
Sentinel, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
Yeah,
right.
you know my words don't make sense. Don't make fun of my English. Yes, and so they wrote an op-ed saying that they wanted to go ahead and say that they will endorse anyone but Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very, very telling. Of course, he does his typical,
Yeah.
stuff or whatever.
So-
So what do you think? Do you think he is going to increase that and
Let me give a short response.
Okay.
So our guests can speak.
Yes.
But nativism is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's clearly on the rise. It's clearly targeted to brown people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's shocking how present it is in Charlotte, in my district, on my campaign page, and the people that I have to deal with. And having grown up in Southern California, lived most of my life in cosmopolitan California, it kind of shakes me.
Sure.
So
Well, it's interesting because even in California, what was it, 3 weekends ago, there were the nominations and the votes for the leadership for the DNC, and you had 3 white males and 1 African American female. As we talk about the DNC and we talk about the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
but yet what did the members
Yeah.
do? Voted yes.
Well,
Yeah, okay.
White male
So the
California,
inner,
so across the nation.
yeah, right. But the inner problems of the DNC, the corporate wing and the
Yeah.
squelching of the progressive wing. We all know what's
we do
going
that
on
all the
there.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's happening in California. So
Well, this is-
I got my own party problems. Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
I appreciate
Good luck
that.
with that.
The great thing, anyone who watches this show knows that we constantly try to promote all parties,
Right.
and
Yes.
even though we're not talking about this, we have
Yeah.
special elections. I believe
Mhm.
election 3 is going on right now.
Yeah,
Is that right?
They've got a
Early voting has started. Congressional District 3.
early voting has started in Congressional District 3,
And there's
which
a
is the
libertarian,
eastern part of the
there's
state,
a Republican, and there's a Democrat.
and there's a constitutional.
And a constitution. So
but,
four
but
choices.
there is a Republican primary.
Oh, okay.
So they
Oh,
they
that's
haven't
right.
settled
That's right.
on the
That's
4
right.
candidates.
So this
yet.
is the primary.
That's right.
The special election for NCO9, which we live in which
Right.
we'll find out in the next week if it's unconstitutional. Supreme Court will be ruling.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are looking forward to the SCOTUS ruling,
Yeah.
Supreme Court ruling,
Yeah.
which should be handed down. It could be handed down today.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
they have-
any day now.
There are 4 candidates. There's Libertarian, there's Green Party, there's Republican, and there's Democratic.
That's right.
And as we said, we want everyone to look at all of those and
That's
just
right.
make a decision on who best fits your values or your platforms, whatever. I'm going to support someone who supports as much of my Democratic platform and that may not be the Democratic candidate, but I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure that I support that. But one of the things that I thought of, and I really think we need to do in North Carolina, is for our Latinx community, is our Latinx community needs to start looking outside of the 2 parties that basically have just ignored them.
Right.
We have HB 370, which is possibly going to pass, and our governor still has not said he will veto it. And to me, that is just outrageous when he won by less than X amount of votes, and we know that a large part of those are Latinx and people of color. And so I think when those issues are an issue, and I always say this, if it's not a white woman or if it's not a gay white issue, our party just doesn't pay attention. So,
Well, let me just say.
as a white woman, would you mind explaining why that is the case?
I'm an independent.
Oh, I
don't care.
forget. Yeah,
I
you're
can vote for
unaffiliated.
Let me
whoever
just
I
put
want.
in a less than 30-second plug for the fact that Alan and I,
Yes.
the Green Party candidate, are going to sit down on Friday mornings at 10 o'clock, and we're going to webcast with even lower budget than Coffee and PanDulce at a coffee shop, and we're going to talk about issues for about 30 minutes, and we plan to do that assuming, you know, we're in town and we can do it.
Because I-
From
Man About Town.
Sure.
That's right, man about town in a coffee
And
shop.
women.
And I do appreciate that the Libertarian Party has been on the record and against 287G, abolishing ICE, supporting our sheriff.
That's right. I
And
strongly
the Green
support
Party
the
as
sheriff.
well.
I strongly support the
Our
sheriff
Democratic
on this
nominee
issue.
has not said that, and our Republican nominee is not. He's actually using it as a really divisive wedge.
He's a very negative campaigner, and he's sort of calm, cool, and collected as a person, but his campaign is extremely negative, and I try to troll his social media accounts as best as I can to trash his views, and I even have complimented Dan McCready on a couple of things that he's been quoted as saying he makes a very reasonable case about, you know, international. You know, tell me why, Republicans, please tell me why your hair is on fire about somebody buying an intermediate good from China. It's just, you know, so they're just crazy on this topic.
Well, listen, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Give us 1 second here, y'all. I apologize. They can't see this.
Modern technology, but it is still recording.
It is.
I go through this a lot.
Oh, do you? Okay, excellent. So we're going to go into right now because I don't have,
you know, because
speak up just a little.
Okay, well, I had an experience recently, and while first I'll say that in general, our political system is outdated. We should update, and probably the way, to me, we should have some sort of parliamentary system where it's proportional, you know. But again, that's hundreds or thousands of years if the country still existed. Yeah, but overall, I had an experience recently where I volunteer at Time Out Youth, and so they were looking for a counselor. Their preference was for, you know, soliciting for everyone, but they have a large Black trans population, so if they could find a counselor that, you know, reflected the population that they're serving, they would like that. So I reached out to a few people and asked, okay, hey, would you be able to provide a suggestion, you know, reach out to people? And I got a response from someone, and they said, well, I, in good conscience, cannot do that because, you know, Time Out Youth works with CMPD. And my thought process was like, you know, I respect their opinion, but it was self-righteousness is not just a problem of the religious. You know, and at the end of the day, you know, it goes to the Good Samaritan. You can find so many reasons not to help someone. But just help. What is gonna bring the greatest help to any person? And I think that, to me, is what we should be thinking about in voting. Now, I agree with you that, you know, parties don't always listen to what you need, but which party do you think, or which representative is gonna help the people that you want to help the most? And then, so, because people are, I think at the end of the day, I think we should give people more grace than we do. Everyone has to make the best decisions, and if we were in those positions, a lot of times we might find ourselves, okay, well, I have to decide here or that. And
so are you saying to vote for someone who, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is that it's okay to vote for someone who is not 100% with what you're saying?
Well, I'm just like, to me, yes, definitely, I'm looking at who is going to most further the ideals or help the people closer to actually getting something.
But what that sounds like to me, Maurice, and just that's not to interrupt you, but what that sounds like is, because I went through this in 2016, whether to endorse Hillary Clinton as congressional nominee or Bernie Sanders. And when I endorsed Bernie Sanders, I got so much heat from Democrats, especially our state party chair, other people who said, you're just wasted, it's a wasted, you know, it's a wasted vote, it's this. See, I don't believe there is a wasted vote. And so, and I do, and now I look back, I'm glad I supported Bernie, because we wouldn't be talking about Medicare for all. We wouldn't be talking about some of the issues. And so when I say there are 4 candidates, yes, the Democratic nominee is not a perfect candidate. Doesn't even want to be called a Democrat, that particular individual. The Republican candidate is running to their base, wants to be as divisive and so forth. And what I say is that, and my family has made a decision, I'm not going to say, we haven't got to our buttons. I'm tired of, or what is it?
I'm sick and tired.
I'm sick and tired of being tired. I'm sick and tired of people, and not you, but people telling me, don't support that person because it's a wasted vote. And what I say is nothing that my family does is ever wasted. Even if I vote for someone who gets 3 votes, that is something that my family has made a decision to support, because I guarantee you what happens is the next election,
That's right.
that person is going to be talking about those issues because they look at the data, they look at the research, and they say, this is something that we need to discuss. So
you're laying the foundation for future candidacies.
And by saying I'm going to vote for this person, let's just say Green Party person. If by saying I'm going to vote for the Green Party person, when you have an election that many of our elections now are going to be within like 1 or 2%, this person lost like 900 something votes, maybe that will make him start talking about those issues like LGBTQ in the military that person doesn't talk about, like this person that I'm specifically talking about actually supports Trump's increasing ICE, which is completely against what I believe. This person does not believe that Dreamers should be granted automatically citizenship. He believes that they share his values, which is to me always a scary word, because an LGBT person, anytime someone says values, is that a Christian value? Is that this value? Those are things that I think are very, very important for that person to say. But more importantly, the only 2 of the candidates, the Libertarian and the Green Party candidate, has really ever come out and say, I support our sheriff. And so for me, something like that is important to me, because that's the same this person that I'm talking about has never called Trump divisive, ever, but had the nerve to call our first Muslim woman from divisive. And so you don't have to, and so to me those are important things.
But there's another part of that, and that is I blame us as a community, because more often than not we are voting for the lesser of evils, opposed to voting for the best candidate. Now you are not going to agree with every decision that I make. If you agree with everything, that is a cult. I'm not interested in the cult of LaWana. My disclaimer, thankfully I live in the 12th Congressional District, and my congresswoman is very outspoken and fights for a lot of issues that are directly tied to my value system. But we cannot find that one person that is going to be everything for everyone. Yet, if we truly believe in the ideals, if you are a true Democrat, not someone who runs on a Democratic ticket, but you're still bringing your true divisive ideals to the table. If you truly believe in the ideals of the Democratic Party, knowing that we have a lot of faults already, then if your language is one that's tied more to the conservative and the extremely right conservative community, then no, I'm not going to publicly support or endorse you. No, I am not going to donate to you. No, I'm not even going to have a whole conversation about you, because your value system is very different than mine. And I always have and also have a concern when we talk about values or when we talk about morality. Because your moral compass is not necessarily my moral compass. And one of the top things that's in my moral compass is actually in the Bible, and that's adultery. So, but yet it is all around us every day. So when we have these conversations, the way that you have a better conversation, a better candidate, is on the front end. Now we're in primaries, because whatever happens, whoever is chosen is only there for a couple of months. We should be having these conversations right now of who's going to be the stronger
for 2020
representative, either on the Republican side or the Democratic side. My personal belief, and like a rump, we all got our own opinion, but when you look at our nation, we are at bare minimum a 5-party nation. And if you look, as you were starting earlier at other countries and look at the way that you have the ability to represent, we still have these antiquated laws of you have to get so many signatures if you're outside of
Exactly.
the two main parties
Especially
in
North
order for
Carolina.
you to even get
Yeah.
have opportunity to have a platform. And you cannot run
Mhm.
for office as an independent.
Yeah.
You
That's right.
have to make
And some
it's
other
the two
countries
main
have
parties.
made, some other countries recently have made some remarkable progress. I mean, the Brexit Party, they were only around for about 5 months. They were, granted, they were focused on that one issue. In Mexico, the elections, that party had been around for what, only a year or more?
Well, we need
So,
to move on the
yeah,
topic, but I'm
yeah.
going to add what I've
Yeah.
said almost every show since we started.
Bless your heart.
We have one congressperson who represents the majority of Charlotte, and that is Congresswoman Alma Adams.
Alma Adams.
And I wish that Alma Adams got just a fraction of the publicity, a fraction of the respect, a fraction of the donation of all these white Bettys in South Charlotte.
Exactly, because we're
They
still
got it
fighting
over our currently,
against that
but-
conversation because you still have a
It's
black
just-
female
Yes.
Yeah.
who
And
is in the room actually fighting
Yes.
every single day.
And her
and,
district
and
actually
bipartisan
includes
work.
Bank of America.
Yeah.
She includes
Yeah.
the major banking industry, the third major banking industry in the country, and
But-
she gets very little attention, media time, or everything. It's as if though this person who's going to be elected in CO9 is going to be the Charlotte. No, this person only represents a very small section of South Charlotte. You know,
She's great.
and so that is to me what
Does
is
Alma
amazing.
sit on the banking committee?
I think she sits. She doesn't sit on that one, but she sits on some other very important committees.
'Cause-
And
okay.
So
Anyway.
I guess what I'm saying is that all these people in our party, especially at the state, that are bending over backwards for this person who won't even say they're a Democrat, never lift a finger to help Alma Adams or anyone else, person of color who decides to run for office. And I say that all the
Dee Dee-
time. People
Dee
always,
Adams ran into that.
yes, exactly.
For her
Linda
race, she
Coleman,
could
Lieutenant
have
Governor.
won,
Yeah,
and the Democratic Party
Yeah.
chose not to
To put
back
their
her.
efforts.
And even with all the obstacles
Yeah.
and not having the support, that margin was so narrow of her doing it on her own, and it becomes a question of, as a collective, why do we keep trying to shore up and support a party that does not support us?
I agree.
And it
Yeah,
goes
I
back to,
I say
I'm
this.
going to spend my money
Yeah.
with the companies
Yeah.
that invest in my community.
Yeah, and
Well-
that's a good point. What you made. Yeah.
Yeah,
go ahead.
well, because I just want to make one quick point, because I think for me, it's you definitely vote
Sure.
your conscience.
Sure.
I believe in that. But I also think that with some of these other parties, you should consider actually running at smaller races and
Sure.
building up a bench,
Sure.
because that's part of the issue.
Yes.
That, like with libertarian or other, you just go for presidential or you go for
Well,
Senate.
and the good news is in this, and I've since I've met Jeff, because Jeff actually debated me during when I was running the primary, because my primary opponent did not want to even meet with us because he didn't want to answer any questions. So we had a debate, and we disagree on many things.
Yeah.
But there's many things that we agree with. We agree with the women's right to choose.
That's
We
right.
agree with LGBTQ unconditional rights.
Right.
We agree with abolishing ICE, or at least no 227G.
Yeah.
We agree with there's some other issues,
Yeah.
but we disagree
Mhm.
on. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe in gun reform. I believe in some other things. So, but we've had the ability. We've had that be able to conversation. So now I consider myself to be a Democratic libertarian, because there's many issues that I'm libertarian on where I don't want the government involved in what I do in my household.
Yeah.
And
I would
Yeah.
just say that LaWana
Mhm.
and I are on the same wavelength on several issues too.
Right.
Yeah.
most
So-
people,
And that's
are,
where
you know,
and that's
Yeah.
where we
Yeah.
get back to
Sure.
Yeah.
when we are able to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
these conversations.
That's right.
We are not going to agree on everything.
Sure.
But what are the pathways where we can agree, and let's work on that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So
That's
we
right.
can work. We can agree on this issue.
right,
Let's
sure.
work on that on this issue.
And don't
Yeah.
you
We
think
can
that's
agree
what
on
people-
this issue because bipartisan,
Don't you think
true
that's what people
bipartisan.
want?
That's what
Yeah.
people
But
Yeah.
we
want
want
in
to see
theory.
it start
Yeah.
But
somewhere.
collectively,
Yeah.
we like the rhetoric.
Yeah.
We like the infighting. We like the negativity, because then when you have someone that
Yeah.
comes out and that tells you, like our sheriff,
Sure.
who runs on a platform of this is what I'm going to do. So even going back to the interview this morning, where the judge who wrote the book talking about Truman, and when it came time for his reelection and his opponent, the question and the interview was what he's running on the principles and the values of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So why are you not supporting it? He's doing
Sure.
everything he says. Yeah, because he's actually doing it and he means it.
Yeah.
That's what the challenge is.
Yeah.
So it's great to say it as
Yeah.
long as you're not actually going to put the work in to actually correct it. Just run it as your platform and then get in and do whatever.
Sure. Well, we've
That's
got-
the challenge.
Listen, we've got 5 minutes. We're going to go over a little if
Yay.
y'all don't mind,
Yeah.
because
Sure.
I do think it's important to talk about that issue. But once again, what I will say is that one of the things that I hope that people who watch this show and they see the diversity that we tried to have on this show is I hope we start to break down these bless your heart myths
Yes.
that candidates of color cannot chew gum and walk at the same time.
Yeah.
We can be passionate about issues that are important to our families or whatever and negotiate at the same time.
Yes.
We've had it for decades with Pluckett and all those people that were on our county commission who are just as divisive on that end.
Yeah.
And they were able to, whatever. And so I don't think.
Is it Pluckett or Puckett?
Oh, I don't know their names. You know I'm terrible at
That's
names.
it. Puck it.
Yeah.
The Puckett.
Do I have
the
to
other-
correct you again?
Of course you do. So,
Again?
I do
Don't let
want
the
to say.
white male be the one.
This his show. I mean,
Okay.
Well, technically 3 of us on the show.
It's Pluckett.
And so I will absorb Ruth's. God, you did not just interrupt me. All right, so here we go. Ruth, we miss you today. Let's talk very briefly about art funding and taxpayers. You want to let us know in 30 seconds what it is, because then we can let people kind of see what they stand.
So everybody knows the basic outline of the argument, right? We want to have a great city with great arts, and for me, that's music, dance, ballet, theater, all of those things. Public art. My wife was a public artist, so we want to have a stable, somewhat stable funding source. We want to support the arts. The question is, should we impose a sales tax and impose those costs on people who might not want to consume that art, they might not want to buy it, and is the money, are the gatekeepers at the ASC or any gatekeeper for that matter, are they really doing the right thing by setting parameters on what they can donate to? I mean, who really benefits, and are they really sort of throwing money at sort of corporate art, and are they just helping to fuel high real estate prices by accommodating hikes in rents and stuff like
I was
that?
going to reach for it.
So that's it. That was
So,
my
okay,
question.
was-
four
That was 30
disclaimers.
seconds.
One, I am a board member of the Arts and Science Council.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and I actually lobbied to be appointed because the mayor of the city of Charlotte actually appoints to
Right.
all the council members to
Okay.
certain boards. Because I had some of the same questions
Right.
regarding who has access.
Right.
So what I can say is 2 things, because I want you to be able to speak as well. First, there's no way for us to silo
Yeah.
the tax structure so that the wealthiest
Right.
pay
Mhm.
versus others.
Right.
Okay.
What I can also say, number 2, is that the Arts and Science Council did a reflection. We held the mirror up to
Yeah.
ourselves, our board leadership as well as our executive director. And what you see, and you can trace it back over the last few years, we still have work to do, but there has been a conscious and very deliberate goal and focus to be representative of the diversity of our community. So you have more local community groups that have received funding, that have received training, that has received funding for administrative, and for many. Well, actually, it triggered when we bought Wicked, because I wasn't standing in that line. So I was like, okay, no, we're gonna need to go ahead and get season tickets.
Yeah.
So there's another disconnect that people think that those of us in the Black community don't attend arts. So there is a clear
You're defying gravity.
focus.
Yeah.
There's a clear focus within the Arts and Science Council, and I have total belief and respect in my fellow board members as well as our new executive director that was announced, as well as our previous board chair and executive director, that we see the realities of our community and we know that we were not accessible and we're making clear steps to ensure that we are.
Yeah, and I would just, add to that is that, what type of art are you
Right.
talking about?
Yeah.
Because again, if you're talking about rap as art, there is art of ethnic communities that can also be representative, and are you serving those people? So, because again, if we take that lens of art is just ballet or orchestra, then we are cutting people out. And we need to provide opportunities. I mean, remember, Bearden, there are artists within our community that can be supported, and it's actually a pathway to wealth and other opportunities. And so looking at how you can, invest, in areas that are not being representative. So.
Well, again, that just raises.
So when we talked about this,
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
interrupt you, Jeff,
sure.
and then please tell us how you feel as well, Barbara.
Yeah.
What are you saying? Are you saying that there is this question of whether we should fund the art? Is that what the question is in City Hall or Mecklenburg?
I think that we can be creative on the funding model.
Okay.
Right.
Because that's what they're trying to do? Figure out the funding model.
The sales tax is one thing. A
sustainable funding model.
Right. And there have been different sort of progressive proposals for a type of voucher system where everybody can kind of use vouchers to kind of buy the art they want or support the art that they want.
All right.
And which we can talk about some other time. But there's also this gatekeeper function, right? So when it comes to art, I'm actually a radical in the sense that I believe that art is something that you should is it really an end in itself, right? It should be contemplated as what it is and nothing more. It doesn't serve any further purpose. So I think that there's a lot of creativity. There's a lot of creative people that need to go.
Because I had no idea what you just said.
I get it, but
art isn't a means to other ends. It isn't necessarily.
That sounds very artsy.
It doesn't. It's when you make a thing of beauty.
Yes.
It's to be contemplated.
Okay.
For its own sake. Right, you look at it and you go, "That's beautiful," and that's it.
That's one
what it's
segment.
for.
So when
That's
you
what
go
it's
back
for.
to what is
Well,
art,
yeah.
when you think of expression, when you think of plays, when you think of community art, when you think of young people coming together to create a art piece in a neighborhood, when you have a neighborhood that comes together to create art on the sidewalks, to create art on the side of walls, when you think of the fact that it does create something different because it creates an opportunity for community.
Yes.
I don't disagree with that at all. But what I'm saying is the gatekeeper function. I'm very skeptical about the gatekeeper function, about the people who put this stuff out.
So very quickly, what are you recommending we do at the county level for the art?
I think we should explore a voucher program, but we should also explore setting aside real estate, because I know that some of the problems that theater groups have, for example, is simply finding a residency and finding a place to
operate. And you believe that should be paid for by the taxpayers or the county taxpayers?
Well,
because that's the big question.
Yeah,
Where's the funding coming from?
Right.
Who is supposed to
that's
pay for
ultimately
this?
what
Whereas if everybody has a little piece of it, because here's the reality: the corporate community has cut back funding
because they're
drastically with how they give.
That's right.
But a lot of it is because we don't have those corporate leaders that live here and that invest in the community. A lot because of a lot of mergers, a lot of people may have a headquarters here, but their top executives are gone. And we have to go back to it was county members. Because we brought Angels to America to Charlotte that cut the funding for so long, so arts have been working on a shoestring budget, and when you're dealing with a lot of corporate dollars, that means you're also dealing with a lot of corporate strings. And then when you're talking about gatekeepers,
that's right.
They're the ones that get to determine, we will give this 100,000, we would give this 500,000, but this is the only thing that we will fund. So you don't get to see the diversity of community the way you should.
Exactly.
That's right.
the one thing I want to say is, when I heard it, I said no. But in my own family, we had two artists, and it's a living for them. It's how they put bread and butter on the table and banking and whatever. And people seem to forget that it isn't just something pretty to look at. This is how they make their living.
Well,
and people forget about that.
So
So did you change your mind?
I did. Yes, I did. based on what you
Jeff,
said,
real
I
quickly,
had
because
no
then we
idea.
gotta wrap it up.
Well, I've got about a decade and a half of being involved in
Yes.
public arts funding because of my wife's
Sure.
business and doing the accounting for that, and also my sister runs has her own dance
Sure.
company, World Dance
Okay.
Fusion, and she's been
So
a
you're
very
kind of
successful.
involved.
So I am involved in this. I see the struggles of artists,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to be fairly emphatic on this point that it's really a shame to make people pay for things that they don't want to pay for, and
Sure.
that's the struggle
When
that
you're
I have.
struggling to pay
But
for
I don't
There's a
want,
lot of things
I
I'm
don't
paying
want,
for that I
That's
don't
right.
want to pay for.
That's
I don't
right.
have any children,
I don't
but I'm
disagree
paying a
with that.
whole lot of my taxes to go towards helping people.
Well,
that
I
have
don't- I
multiple-
will-
I don't disagree
I don't
with that.
have any grandparents or great grandparents
Well,
that I'm
you're-
paying in the services
Yeah.
because
You're
that is
preaching
who
to the
we are
converted,
as community.
Right.
Is you paid for the collective to help to the best of our ability to help create a strong community, because there's a lot of services that I don't use on a daily basis or even within an annual
Yeah.
basis that we pay for.
Right.
Well,
I don't have a problem paying for this one.
We have,
With this
unfortunately,
part-time
we have
job.
run out of time. We're gonna,
Yes.
we are gonna
We'll
go around.
revisit this
We're
topic.
going to go around and you're going to give us 30 seconds on a button
Yes.
or an issue or whatever, but because I have to say one controversial thing every show,
Well, no,
I will say this is one of the frustrations that my family, and I know many families here in Charlotte, have about our current political leadership, specifically our mayor and our pro tem. One of the concerns I have, and I'm not going to put you on the spot because I know you are on the dais, and I but what I have to say is I wish that our current mayor and our pro tem, as much energy that they gave to landing the RNC, that are giving to host the Trumps here that are coming, I wish they gave as much effort and energy, political capital, into going after all of these corporate people and making them contribute back into our community. Imagine if that was really their mission instead of these other missions.
Yeah.
I
I'm not
wish
sure
that
what they
I
are.
wish that leadership. The Bank of America CEO lives in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Call him out and say, we need you to be a better civic or corporate neighbor, and we need you to
Corporate
communicate.
citizen here in Charlotte,
Yes,
because
to
this
go
is where
over.
your headquarters
The
is.
BB&T and SunTrust are merging. Instead of saying, well, and I'm glad you said we excited it. I hope, why can't you just add, and we expect you to participate in our community, contribute to the art, contribute to affordable housing, contribute to income inequality, contribute to those things. I don't know why we can't spend as much energy on those things as well. And so that's my biggest frustration, is that that is not always done.
So I will say this one piece. I was in one meeting with the heads of both SunTrust and BB&T, because as a general rule, as
Sure.
a district representative, of which, yes, everyone I'm running for city council
Yes.
at large, because I have been in the district role for the community for 8 years, and I made a commitment. Give me 4 terms, that's 8 years. We have had a lot of opportunities and growth, but there's still a lot more that our city needs, and I believe that I asked the questions that others, unfortunately, are afraid to ask. Well, what I can say about both BB&T and SunTrust is, on their end, they have already identified and own a corporate responsibility to the community.
Excellent.
For years, they have already contributed a lot, and out of their mouths,
Sure.
they have already committed to being
Good.
a true corporate partner and a good friend to the community.
Good.
As far as the other piece, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
all of us are up for election this
Yeah.
year. Y'all figure it out. So the
People
4
make
large
a
seats,
decision. All right.
y'all gonna have decisions to make. I'm saying I should be one of the 4.
Okay, well, thank you. And you can talk very briefly. We're going to go around and you can tell us where you stand. I just want to let people know that I attended a very important event this weekend. It was called End the Violence. It was in Raleigh. It was sponsored by, or it was kind of brought together by the March for Our Lives group, the college kids from UNCC. It's all around the country, and I want to thank them for what they're doing. We need to continue to talk about that. Also this weekend, there's also all around the country hosting Need to Impeach. I believe our president needs to be held to the same standards as, I know we don't agree with this, and so people who think you and I are just like puppets with each other, you should hear us behind the scenes.
Orange
Maybe one day we will
man.
release that. But so there are Need to Impeach rallies all across. I'm actually hosting one for the Charlotte chapter, so please go on the they have a Twitter, Facebook, and so forth, Need to Impeach. And we want to educate people that impeachment is a process. It's a process that occurs in the House. It's an investigation, and then if anything is found, it's turned over to the Senate, and the Senate votes for impeachment. The House does not. But like I said, I believe that if our president had done just a fraction of what he did in the real world, we would be looking at him as if we were HR directors. So that's all I'm talking about. Okay. And then the third thing is I want to say, at a personal privilege, besides he will be in Rock Hill. My family is a Texas Christian University and Mississippi State family. And I want to say Hell State. They play Auburn. No, Vandy. They play Vandy today because they got rained out in the College World Series. So please support them.
Well, you wore a lot of hats today.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to go around, and you're going to tell us where you're going to be or anything you want to say as I go behind and play director, since we don't have a director today. Alexa, play Pandora. We'll start with you, Barbara.
Okay, this week I will be back on my mental health issues. I actually went online and bought a new button, so that's going to be my thing. Because I come from the pharmaceutical industry, this opioid crisis is my #1 ticket thing, and I think a lot of it is associated with mental health.
So, LaWana and I are going to organize a counter protest of the RNC convention in 2020. We're going to have it out on...
I did not know that.
We are going to have it on Eastway, and it's going to be called Burning Orange Man. Burning Orange Man.
Oh, I get it. Burning Man.
Burning Orange Man. It's going to be in arts. It's going to be very exciting. You're going to want to get tickets very soon.
I have not committed to that, so I will share that yes, I am running for city council, and also want to let everyone know that I have also started a podcast. It is on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, on Facebook. It is Unapologetically Black with LaWana Mayfield. On Instagram it is Unblack, UNBLACK 0123. So please follow me. Tune into the first 4 shows that we've had. And we are looking forward to continuing hard conversations and having fun along the way.
Well, you know, I am grateful for being here. I'd like to do a plug for a nonprofit that I'm on, Project 7 Forward. We help